and make sure that goes on. And good. I haven't seen a lot of activity in the chat yet, so but feel free to fire that up and let's have your questions and comments. I will do my best to keep track of it. I don't have a moderator tonight, but in future, hopefully, we'll have a regular pool of moderators who can come in and not so much to police things, but to help me filter out the questions from the other stuff. Okay. In a moment, I'm going to have Erica Lukes. I think probably a lot of our listeners already know who Erica is. Her bio is in the description for this video, so go look at that if you want to know more about her. And I'll bring her up shortly. I had the privilege of being on her show UFO Classified. That was about maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Probably maybe even longer, maybe like 4 years ago. And then I was with Marcia Barnard. We were on Expanding Frontiers, which is Erica's new gig. And we'll be talking about that too. We also have some other people lined up for future shows. We're doing these every 2 weeks, by the way, on Thursdays. Well, you probably know that today is Thursday, but would consider a switch to Friday, but it would have to be later. Because Friday's not my one day, but certainly probably the best day for the missus and I to get some quality time in together. So, but she's not, she's an early riser and therefore goes to bed early. And so I'm a night owl, so I can stay up and do a live stream later. So I'll consider Friday. I'd be interested in your comments or what's easier and best for you. Now, most of the people that I have lined up so far are pretty well known, have written things or been on quite a few podcasts in the past. I'm also interested in people on who are not well known. Just people want to come on and talk about the kind of topics we talk about here and do so engaging in an honest and straightforward way. And just have conversations, interview. We don't have interviews at all. I just like the word interview. We have conversations, and we will have people on that to be part of the show. It won't be every week, and it won't, or not every show, and it won't be and it won't be the only thing we do. If you're on last week, you saw I didn't have any guests, and I just talked about a bunch of cases. All cases that involve video, and I'm not sure how well that went because live streaming a video to live stream, sometimes the contrast gets kind of lost. And for some of these videos, you need to have that. Let me know what you think about how that went. That was episode 3, if you want to go back and look at it. All these episodes that will remain on YouTube indefinitely, as far as I'm concerned. There's no need to take them down for any reason I can think of. So get your questions for Erica ready. You can put them in the chat. And we're going to talk for a while, but then pause to answer the questions we have, and then keep them coming. We will. I'd like this to be more audience driven than it is me driven. Okay. Now tonight I will not have an in-depth case study like I had in the first 3. Well, I mean, our first episode was almost entirely an in-depth case study with me and Marcia Barnhart. That won't happen tonight. If there's time after Erica says goodnight, we may, I'll talk not about a case, but I will talk about aliens. Because I think you like people to talk about aliens, don't you? Well, I like to talk about aliens too, actually. In fact, I have another podcast, which is a bit on hiatus right now, but it's called The Wow Signal, and it's mostly about the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, SETI. I don't like that term, actually, but anyway, it's about that quite a bit, and life on other planets. So, yeah, we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about a few other things. And if you have questions, fire them at me. Yeah, if you're in the chat, say hello to Jack, and feel free to identify yourself if you like. Okay. I'm going to bring in Erica now. Hold on. Just a second here. This worked last time. Not working today. Okay. Give me just a second here. Difficulties. There we go. Now you can see Erica. That may be all you want to see right now. Let's see. Yeah, you can see Erica, and there's some old man in the other window. Might be somebody we know. I don't know. Fit to screen. Oh, okay, perfect. There you go. Okay, should be able to see both of us now. Erica, welcome to API Case Files Live.
Thank you.
Now, when I last talked to you, you were just starting this Expanding Frontiers thing. Long time.
Right.
And
A long time. Yep. And then before that, I had another couple shows with different names. And so it's been, my goodness, over a decade.
Yeah. And I have to say, I really enjoyed UFO Classified. And
Thank you.
I couldn't watch it live every time because, like I said, Friday nights is our quality time.
Date nights.
We'd watch it afterwards, or, and I was on it once, I think. Yeah, at least once.
Yeah, I think at least once, yeah.
And so, and it was a good show. And you had a good audience. You had a good community built around that show that hopefully some of them will show up today.
I'm really hoping. It's Jack and I have been, since I let UFO Classified, kind of drop off, and my focus has been expanding frontiers research with Jack Brewer, my partner. We've been so focused on doing that, and we're pulling people over from UFO Classified, and we're really, it takes a minute to grow an audience, and we're very hopeful, and we have been. And you mentioned something that's really important to me that I want to touch on. It's that creating a community, and you and I have both done that and wanted that. That's been very important for me and for Jack, to grow a community where you've got a safe place to go to talk about things in a respectful manner and really elevate the conversation. And so I'm happy to be here tonight, and I really think the world of what you do and your organization. So thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, and now Expanding Frontiers is got a pretty broad scope. You guys look at a lot of different things. It's not just a web show. In fact, it is a lot of research that I think you probably put a lot more work into the research than you do into the occasional interviews that you do online. And
it's constant, you know. I mean, and I will just say, Jack and I don't think there's a day that goes by. Maybe you know, it's been very infrequent. This is going to be our third-year anniversary coming up on Sunday, but there's hardly a day that goes by that we're not communicating and we're not sharing files and we're not talking about research that we're doing behind the scenes. And so it's a very,
you know, there's been a interaction. He wrote a whole book about that called Wayward Sons, and I'm going to have Jack on sometime so he can give me all the Wayward Sons lowdown and any updates to that. But what's some of the things I know you've been talking to environmentalists, you've been talking to journalists, lots of other people. Is there a general theme, or is it just whatever's interesting at the moment? Or
you know what? I mean, that's a great question. Both Jack and I have a broad, you know, area of interest, and I think to me, what has been fascinating to me is to incorporate people who are environmentalists, who are doing work that is nationally and internationally recognized, but then it goes back to what's taking place at Dugway. What have people been testing? What is the cover up? What, you know, the alleged cover up? And then you can pull that back into, if you're really thinking about it, into some of the UFO world and the need for creating this myth of extraterrestrials or, you know, Area 51. There are, you know, when we're shipping anthrax, live anthrax to different places around the world, and then, you know, we're throwing things out where, oh my goodness, there's a UFO sighting within a week of all of these things going on at Dewey. Environmental activists that I'm bringing on, and some of the journalists who are teaching important information about weaving through or understanding what disinformation and misinformation is, because that is really an important topic in the UFO world. So they do have threats.
okay, yeah, and I've noticed quite a few different ones. And so I mean, you're still a full-time business owner, as far as I know.
Yep.
This is not your day job, but you've still managed to put a lot of energy into it. I know there was some corruption around Skinwalker Ranch conference. There was some other good stuff like that. You know, give us a good one.
You know, I mean, I think that, well, the Skinwalker Ranch is just, I mean, obviously that's something that's known. It's world renowned, the paranormal Disneyland, and yada yada bing bang, all this, you know, nonsense. And to me, in UFO Classified, I interviewed pretty much most people that were associated with the ranch over the years. There were some great interviews that I look back on and go, ah, I got you on tape there, and this is, the whole world can see that one. But it was, for me to have the up close and personal experiences with the Skinwalker crowd, and I want to just go back a little bit. I'm a Utah girl, born and raised, for better or for worse. I love Utah, but it's an interesting state. And, you know, I mean, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, I remember going to a lecture about Skinwalker Ranch. And it was intriguing. I mean, you've got this little ranch out in the middle of, you know, nowhere, and all these alleged strange things happening. And it really kind of hooked me, like it has done with a lot of the people that dig into the paranormal or the UFO world. And the more that I began to interview these people, the more that some of these people became, you know, they would come knocking at my door. They would spend hours and hours, countless hours for years, communicating with me and trying to feed different stories to me in the hopes that I would put this information out to the public. And when the narrative that was, you know, they wanted me to put out wasn't really jiving, things got very interesting. And so during that time period, I mean, over the past, 15.
Uh-oh. I think we've lost.
Out in that area.
Okay.
And people that can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So I, established relationships with people who live in that area and have gone out to that area for many years to conduct on some people that were very life-changing, and interviewing people like Joseph Jr. Hicks started, where they kind of the powers that be hooked onto Junior, and in order to craft their narrative, the really shady narrative that when you look at it and punch holes in it, it's very glaringly obvious. This is all nonsense. But so that to me was fascinating. It was fascinating also when Jack and I started to work together, to be able to say to Jack, okay, hey, we've got, here's a fellow who is involved with the ranch. His father is the senator in this particular area. There are lots of things going on behind the scenes. Let's do some digging. And we did that with the Phenomicon story that I'm really proud to say we were mentioned, we were featured in the media because of our work exposing kind of this, uh, in my opinion, corruption. It is very fascinating that you've got people that are ahead in charge of the conference. They're being paid. It's being paid for by taxpayer dollars. The people in that area could use those taxpayer dollars to fund a lot of things, including help with homelessness, including help with domestic violence, including help with environmental issues that they are facing. But yet these, a couple $100,000 is going to fund a conference that is based on absolute garbage. And so we dug into it. We got the records, we got communications between all of these officials, and really did a great job exposing what was taking place. And also, Jack did a great interview with Thomas Winterton, the ranch caretaker, and it was, I'm very proud of what we have done, and I'm also proud of, the fact that between UFO Classified and now expanding Frontiers Research, we can shine a light on a grift, on something that is not what it seems. And in my opinion, when you have it's that is why I've spoken out. That is why Jack and I speak out, and we have facts in hand. We have the documentation to back up what we're saying. So that's been something I've been incredibly proud of. My work,
Well, yeah, you should be.
Frontiers.
There's my little story is I went out there once in 2013 with a couple other people, and this was after speaking to a well-known former military officer who told us not to go out there. And but anyway, we were treated to security theater, is what I would call it. And we were not on the ranch at all. We were not even close to the ranch. We were at a vantage point like a mile away. But we could see what was going on there. And we got, subtly harassed. And then I never understood why they even cared that somebody was over there. But because people go there, well, back in those days, people went there all the time. People would try to fly drones over there or put RC cars down the driveway. And then I thought, well, what's been documented about this is really, there's just no evidence for it. It seems like it's all just this myth theater. And I took that as an educational point. While we were there, we met people who were true believers, people who really thought that there was something paranormal or going on there, and claimed to have experienced some of it, had seen portals, animals that, strange animals or strange people. But
strange people, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, the strange people just are attracted to it. the one thing I noticed when you watch the TV shows, they give you the impression it's like way out in the boondocks, in the middle of nowhere, and it's actually surrounded by oil and gas properties on all sides, and there's a lot of trucks rolling through the area. It's not that far from a small town. It's on a reservation or near a reservation, but I had this picture of it as being, you'd be out like far out in the wilderness and there was the ranch, and it's not like that at all. There's a lot of industry right around there, and
right.
So yeah, it's not what you see on TV. Probably not at all what you see on TV.
I mean, you're right. It does kind of give you this illusion that it's out in the middle of nowhere, and there are houses, all around and up on the mesa, and it's you get there, and you could literally step over the fence, which I always find so common.
We've lost Erica briefly. Hopefully temporary. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Okay.
Hopefully. Okay. Sorry about that. It's, like I said, you can literally step over the fence. The guards are not patrolling the area all the time. And like, I've always kind of wondered why in the world you would need a heavily armed security guard to patrol this area anyway. It just seems like cosplaying.
I think at that time, that was what Mr. Bigelow wanted, because he owned the ranch at the time. He sold it shortly after that, I think. And I've heard different stories about that, like that they had to live on very low budget, very wealthy guy, and they were just. So they would go out at night with this gigantic floodlights and try to act like they were guarding the place. There's nothing to guard.
Friend in the few years, but driving up and there were, two of the cutest dogs. These cute old stinky ram. Okay, this is what you got, and then you could hear this voice, in the background. Get out of here! I mean, it was just like, this is so not menacing, and like I said, just to have armed security guards, that's all. That was all for show. People with their military weapons, and it's kind of comical as I look back on it, all of it, and yeah, it's a good time waiting to happen.
Well, yeah, fortunately there were no shots fired, but at least not. Well, I understand there's a myth that somebody fired at a strange animal that they saw and it did no harm, but I don't know if there's any confirmation of that. But yeah. Well, I just wanted to tell my little story about
it was. I mentioned that on the show.
Yeah, it was fun. And we did speak to some of the true believers, and they had lots and lots of stories to tell. But many of them were stories about how they'd gotten chased away, or tried to get in, or something like that. Or this was the early days of drones, but people still had some drones that they were flying, over the ranch and so on. Anyway, that does seem like a distant past now. That was 12 years ago that I was there with those other people. And we made some trips out west where we we said, let's go to this like famous place, and there was absolutely nothing there. And you know, probably the best thing we would see would be some horses running around or something. Uh, and so I don't. And we dug for a crash flying saucer, which I think I'll leave that for another show. We did well, clearly identified what it was. I'll save that for another show.
On our show, you could come and talk about that. I'd love to have you on.
Well, there's a lot. You know, I'm hoping to have Doug Johnson on at some point. Steve, he has the receipts. Why it's not very well known. It's not very well substantiated. So anyway, but everywhere you go, you meet the people who really believe in whatever that thing is. That they believe it fervently.
I mean, it's fascinating. Like, to me, that's why I love like traveling and going, you know, all over the world and sitting their stories, and like you said, they really believe in things. And I think the thing that's so interesting with a place like Skinwalker Ranch is, you know, you had a story that was crafted, that little bits and pieces were taken out of this lore from the local people, and then we're looking into Native American, taking some of the Skinwalker lore, which there was, you know, that's not even, the Navajo were not in that area. So you got to just buzz that right off the chart. Like, I mean, you can look at all of this and go, nope, 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 nope. And, you know, I did, you know, the Skinwalker lore. He looked at me like I was absolutely up in the night. No, it was not a thing. He documented, he went and collected all the oral histories from every tribe in the world. I mean, just I mean, so the myth that was created, and this is a prime example of how you're priming an audience. And so, and I will admit, when I was out to Skinwalker Ranch, you know, you could look at some of the distant lights things and saying, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. And when you aren't skilled at, you know, like you are, understanding what is in your environment, viewing in real time, unless you have that wherewithal, you know, you're going to run to all of these fantastic things, and then, you know, create or join a religion or a cult based on what people are telling you you're witnessing.
Yeah, it is my fascination with this topic is not wavered, but I'm certainly a lot more sophisticated about it and a lot harder to persuade that don't hold up under examination. And so have gone down a rabbit hole and may not come out of the rabbit hole ever.
Right.
Right. It's and I know you. Speaking of which, maybe I don't know if this is more Jack's area or yours, but you have been there's a channeling cult that you guys have been investigating.
Ramtha, yep, Jason.
I had a very tenuous connection with that back many years ago. A friend of mine, its mother, was in that cult. And my understanding of the story, I never spoke to, I knew her mother, but I didn't, we never talked about this particular topic, because she had gone out there, and was out there for quite some time, until all the money was gone. And then once they had all her money, they sent her home. And so she blew her life savings on something she got nothing back for. But she did believe in the channeling. She believed in the messages from Ramtha, I think it was. Yeah.
Yep. And what a sad, I mean, that happens more often than not. People that get involved with religions or cults, maybe the same thing. And That's sad to hear.
Yeah. Well, the that's just my little anecdote. I was never personally involved with Ramtha, of course, but
and I just sorry, go ahead. I need to cut you off there.
But the that's the first I'd heard of them, actually. And then I thought, well, and then later I found out that the leader of that cult is a MUFON contributor with substantial amounts. And I thought, well, wait a minute, how did that happen? Isn't that supposed to be about the scientific investigation of UFOs? And I don't want to tar everybody with the same brush. I mean, a lot of MUFON people are good people, and
right.
And a lot of them are very sincere. But not a lot of them donate vast sums of money either. So it seems like you can get inside. You can buy your way inside, which I know you used to be part of MUFON.
Yes,
were you the Utah
state director? Yep.
State director of Utah, yeah.
Mm-hmm. The world's biggest repository of Ramtha JZ Knight information. That we have a cult and a cult leader who was promoted by King to her audience. There were accounts of them locking the doors and her channeling this ancient warrior who was very anti-Semitic, very pretty nasty stuff. And like you mentioned, your friends, the story that you relayed, people that were good people again that kind of fell into this trap and then ended up losing a lot or being targeted. And so definitely check out what we have on the website.
Yeah, that's at expandingfrontiers.org, right? Okay.
Yeah, expandingfrontiersresearch.org. Yeah.
Oh, Expanding Frontiers Research. Okay. See.
But again, like if you were looking at our stuff and then seeing this Ramtha and seeing the cult and things and wondering, where we're going with that, like you mentioned, I mean, things are basically just collect data and then sell it to the highest bidder. There are these ties, and so that's been important for us to show that, and hopefully people that are involved in organizations, including MUFON. I've got friends in MUFON. I love them. They're very dear people, as you mentioned. But hopefully, some of these things will kind of cause a little bit of raise people's alarm bells.
Yeah, I've had ups and downs with MUFON. The local people tend to be way better than the national organization. In fact, API used to be have a pretty good working relationship with the local with Maryland MUFON, and but we couldn't take it any further than that. The national organization stepped in and said, no, don't share case data with them, don't share anything, and so we were cut off, and we were told that there wasn't ever going to be a kind of like a mutual organization where we could help them on cases, they could help us, and we could do research together, basically. And that so that didn't happen, and it's kind of unfortunate. We did some training together with Maryland MUFON, which I think was good. Everybody benefited from that. Some of the state organizations are good and some are not so good. And I don't judge somebody just because they say I'm with MUFON. As I don't think that means necessarily that they're anti-Semitic or corrupt. It's just the national organization that worries me. And also I think, if you look at the conventions that they have every year, they're not great. There's a lot of
No.
well,
No, when you look at what happened with leadership, specifically Jan Harzan, who is serving a prison term, for pretty horrific things, and then you look at some of the ways that their leadership is, are we're talking about the leadership has um, not had any ethical standards. They have not behaved in ways that support women or minorities in the subject, and that really, their leadership has been so poor in their messaging that that's been, that should be a detriment. To me, if I were affiliated with an organization that my leaders were involved in some of these things, I would say I don't want my name to be involved. And I would start my own chapter with a new name or start my own group with a new name. And so I just have to say, as much as I do really love some of the people involved in the organization, at some point in time, though, you do have to say, wait a minute, these are the people that are representing us. Why do I want to be associated with that? You know what I mean?
yeah. Well, it's I've been lucky that with API, I've never, we've been independent somewhere else, and but that's MUFON is a bigger problem. It's not just the REMF of people; it's others that have come in and should have been repudiated and kicked out, and were not, and that was a big problem with that. A lot of people had a big problem with that and left as a result. I had a big problem with it, and I said, well, okay, I'm never going to be a FI for MUFON. And FI means field investigator. So we don't get anywhere near as many reports as they do. They get a lot more reports. Of course, sorting through all those reports could be more pain than joy. But I think I feel really lucky that I don't have to deal with all that mess.
Right.
And we actually did have a conference one year in 2013. Had some pretty good speakers, some less good speakers, but we discovered the hard way that if you don't put a lot of butts in seats, you take a bath, you lose money.
Right.
And so the way to put a lot of butts in seats is to have the people making claims that they can't support with evidence, but they can support with showmanship. And so that's why we don't have any more to make those kinds of compromises. And
Right. And I think too, like with the changing economy and certain things that are going on, especially right now, I think it's going to be a little bit harder to fill seats. And then with the internet landscape, you can have an online conference and maybe and not have the overhead of renting a space and paying for, the speakers and the per diems and all of these things. And so it definitely has changed that way. But I did love going to some of the conferences though and meeting and hanging out with some of the, people. It was always fascinating, and I'm
yeah,
sure that your conference was amazing.
well, there is a little conference that I do go to here in Maryland. It's called Mysteries of Sky and Space. It's put on by a UMBC psychology professor named Peter Resta. I consider Pete one of the good guys. I don't agree with him on everything, but I've spoken at that conference 3 times, and 3 times, yeah, 3 times, and I'm actually going back November 1st of this year to speak there again.
Oh, cool.
I'm don't have a topic yet. I'm working on that. But the that's done at a Lions Club Elks Club in kind of a suburban area, low rent kind of hall. So the same hall that the Boy Scouts that have their dinners and that sort of thing, and it draws fewer than 100 people, roughly 100 people every year. And he doesn't pay big speaker fees, so he doesn't have to, or per diems, travel. So we're not the UFO famous at that conference, but no one should endeavor to be UFO famous.
No. I mean, really, it's when you are, there might be a situation there, and it is. That sounds like a lovely. That sounds like a fun conference, actually.
And I think that Peter's shown that if you manage it well, you can afford to do that in a small scale, locally, drawing a regional audience. You just can't. I mean, you're not going to put it on at a Hyatt Regency, and and bring in people who want thousands of dollars in fees. And don't try that. Just have have an online con if you want, or have a local low rent one, and it can be a good time. And of course, the main advantage of that is just get people together, get them talking, I mean. And we have MUFON people that come to that. And we have people who are associated with all kinds of other things there. But Peter's good about keeping the bigots away. And we don't. I haven't seen anyone like that yet. So
that's good. And I think I mean, it's. I think unfortunately, there is that underbelly of this topic of the UFO culture that has always been, I mean, if you look back again at Expanding Frontiers research and look at some of the FOIAs that we've done with regard to the shady characters who are very well known in the subject, historically, who have, you look at their backgrounds and go, good Lord, what? It's very fascinating. So it's nice to know that there's a good conference where people are respectful and like-minded and just wanting to connect with other people and then talk about things that are exciting. Because I mean, like you, I will never not love this topic, and I will never, I mean, I've gone through some of my learning curve, with Skinwalker and with MUFON and Roswell and some of these big, things that have been great disappointments to me. I will tell you, and I'd love to get your thoughts about this, but I found myself not being so odd, and that a lot of ways I miss that. I miss like looking up at the sky, going, "Oh my Lord!" There's this vast universe, and so many things are possible, and can we communicate with the dead, and can we, I mean, there were so many possibilities in my mind 20 years ago that as I've learned more, I've lost that wonder. And I think that it's a good thing, but it is kind of a bummer, sometimes not to have that eyes, just so full of
I miss the sort of the
possibilities.
childlike fascination with everything that I had. I still have it, but it's more subterranean. It's not as deeply emotional as it used to be. Around, and I don't care if I don't see a UFO. I just want to be under the night sky, which I love, and it's been a long time since any of that happened. But I don't expect it'll happen again necessarily. It might just be few times in the middle of my life when I had those experiences. And then I should do something with that. And I think, one thing that if you investigate a lot of cases as I have, it can kind of wear you down a little bit, and you can't. And also if you go online social media, which I do too much, you get a lot of the crazy. You get a lot of the, shall we say, poorly motivated. And the motivation that a lot of these people, you have the people who are either trying to get attention or trying to get you to buy their book or whatever. And then you have fanatical and dogmatic and don't want to hear anything that contradicts what they have to say. And that can really wear you down after time, especially the grifters. It just seems so sordid. And you say, behind all this is that thing that I used to love and was fascinated by, is it just ground me down to dust. Gosh, I need to take a break from I swore I would never watch another show like Skinwalker Ranch or any of those other, they're entertaining for about 5 minutes, and then you go, wait a minute.
Guys with lasers, woo!
Well, back when we first started this, we were actually going to be part of a reality show. But there's for every reality show you see on TV, there's probably 50 that try to start up and don't get funded. But
definitely, yeah, would have changed the trajectory for sure.
Well, I mean, if your priority is to investigate, that's great. But then once the cameras come in and the producers, it's not the priority anymore. And you can find that out by talking to people who have been involved in these things. But I was at the time we were all like, this is great, we're going to be on TV. We're going to get attention for our organization, and really good reports are going to start rolling in. And well, maybe that would have happened, I don't know, but I'm glad we didn't find out the hard way that that's not what it is. But and some people tell me, oh, what I find fascinating is the UFO culture. And I think, well, that's fine, and there, it can be fun. Like if you ever listen to Aaron Golia's podcast, The Saucer Life, he makes it fun. He makes it interesting. Goes into great depth on these things, the culture part. He doesn't judge whether any of it's true or false. He just says, here's what happened in 1983 or whatever. But no, for me, actually, the culture kind of wears me down and makes me think it feels so sordid, so ordinary. And it's like we've sullied it with our human greed and silliness that it's time to move on to, I'd like to just move on to just dealing with the topic itself. And boy, that's easier said than done.
And thank you for sharing that, because I feel the same way. I know Jack and I have conversations, almost on a weekly basis about this, and how it really, it does take a toll on you. Jack is much better about, having, he has taught me a lot about having perspective on things and over the years, and you do need kind of mental health checks. And I wanted to also talk with you, because I was thinking about things to talk with you about tonight, but about the online community. And to
Yeah.
me, in 2017, even before that, but there was a very toxic online community. And to me, to see the way people can get pulled into these UFO groups and bare their souls, and yet you don't know who the moderator is, you don't know who is behind the group, who's gathering your data, and it can be a really, really bad thing. And, take, for example, like the UFO hashtag UFO Twitter and how that pulled in a whole group of people and how that was really, really negative and abusive. And I have to say that I think we have to be mindful of the fact that there are foreign adversaries or interests here at home that have a vested interest in mining data and then also shaping a narrative and creating an atmosphere of fear and angst. And we don't take that seriously in the UFO topic. And also, that brings me to my next point is I feel that the UFO historians have dropped the ball. 99% of them have really dropped the ball when it comes to giving us clear and accurate information about who some of these people were who were steering the narrative because they wanted to shine a bright spotlight on Hynek and think of him as the god of UFOs, and instead of giving us the good, the bad, and the ugly, so we can make a determination on the character of this individual and the content that he has put forward. And I think really, we need to be discerning when it comes, especially to something like this, because there are not only grifters, but there is an element there's a really bad element moving behind the scenes. And so we don't give that credit. And like I said, we haven't had historians that intelligent decisions about it.
Yeah. Well, I wish more people would listen to you, and and not to some of the louder folks that are and as someone who has spent too much time on social media myself, I can tell you people on UFO Twitter or whatever, or reminding them that we want the government to tell us what's really good. The deep state. We want the deep state to inform us.
Yeah, okay, thank you, thank you, thank you. Yes, it's quite amazing to see that the people talking about the deep state, and they're actually the deep state. I find that very comical, actually.
Well, the deep state's only problem when your party is not in power. When your party's in power, the deep state, who's that?
Right.
Or they're the ones that are left over from the last administration, But yeah, well, and there could be lots of little disclosures all the time, and maybe have been, but they're mostly very small details. But it's not a coherent concept in my view. And if you go into any of these social media platforms, that's what you'll see an awful lot of is where's the big disclosure? And as someone who's worked in the government, I'm not a government employee, but I've worked as a contractor in government for most of my career. I can tell you that a coherent picture of anything that's a big topic that covers decades and wide geographic areas and multiple services, probably nobody has that picture. And no one is going to come out and say, okay, the aliens are here, unless they can back it up with rock solid evidence. And that evidence, even if you think it exists, it's probably not in one place. It's in many places that nobody knows where to look for it. So,
but I will say, right, when you see the current goings-ons and trying to hide the Epstein files and different things, now would be a good time. What a great distraction to actually disclose that UFOs are real. If they had it, they would do that, in my opinion. But
well, I mean, it depends on how strong the claim is, right? If people can say, for example, drone incursions are real, but drone incursions could be anything, and these are localized events that, that one base or one service could have all the evidence that you need to establish that it's real. But it's not a very strong claim. It's drone incursions. There are millions of drones in the country. The drones could be anywhere. Not everybody obeys the FAA rules. If you say something like there's an alien presence on Earth, that's an extremely strong claim that I very much doubt anybody has persuasive evidence of that. There are a lot of people who believe it, but there are a lot of little hints that there could be something like that. But for a government official to come out and say, "Oh, aliens are present," and not be backed by a mountain of scientific evidence right behind them, they're not going to do it. They just become a laughingstock.
Like Brichette and Luna and
yeah,
some of the people that we, see.
Well, if you're a congressman, you don't mind being a laughingstock. That's kind of what seems to be the job description. But they don't have access to anything. They're totally at the mercy of people in the executive branch. I'm very so I'm a disclosure skeptic. If you're talking about big D disclosure, and I wish that topic would fade away so we could start talking about the real evidence that we have or don't have and how to get it. And I'm looking for questions here. See. No, I don't. It feels like every time there's some interesting news, there's an equal amount of fighting or politics to deal with. I think more than an equal amount.
Right.
It's swamped by the fighting and the politics.
Well, and again, it's like, for me, I mean, you've had experiences, I've had experiences that I still can't explain. I'm not saying they're ET. I just can't explain them as of now. And the older I've gotten and the more I've learned, the more I want to hold those experiences close to my chest and interpret them as I want to in this moment, and not have other people tell me what this means. And I think the second you go, looking for validation from a group of people, or you get caught up in the disclosure movement, which, I mean, the disclosure movement's been here for how many decades now, and it's always right around the corner.
It's
president, it's Carter, it's Nixon, it's all of these.
It goes back to the 50s at least,
right?
Before I was born,
right? And disclosures is not going to happen. I think that is pretty evident, but a lot of people have made money, grifting on the subject, and it is too bad because, as you mentioned, there are things that are worthy of studying. There are things that are, amazing, and we can enrich our lives and learn more about. And I think that enriched about things, and then you do have to remember there are people like you, out there. You're people that are listening to the show that do have a genuine love in wanting to study something that is potentially unknown, or at the very least learning about life, learning about our environment and our world. And that we need to remember and really feel empowered about when we have moments when we're like, "Oi, I'm out."
Right. There. I think it's Richard Feynman who said, anything is interesting if you study it deeply enough.
Right.
Oh, hello. Oh, doggy.
It's Tinker. Tinker.
What's the name?
Tinker.
Tinker. Okay.
Tinker's, she's just, this is
Very
she's
quiet,
very
calm
excited.
little dog.
Well, not usually, but it is past her bedtime, so I think she's, she's pretty funny.
My dogs are crazy loud things.
What kind are they?
They're all mutts, but they're they tend to be pretty big and very loud. One is almost a pit bull, but I don't think he's actually purebred. But and he's the craziest of the three. Yeah. Anyway, sorry about keeping you up late, Tinker.
I know. Look at her. She has this she's kind of falling into this listening to Rasputin kind of thing and dozing off, and she's really funny. She's, both of all my animals are rescue animals, and so I never fancied myself a Chihuahua owner, but here we go. Here's Tinker, the Chihuahua, But you gotta love him.
My wife wants to get a Chihuahua. And I said, well, that's not a very manly dog, but you can get a Chihuahua if you want to. But at least they're small, easy to deal with. Anyway, yeah, so it's a really tough thing when you get older. And I'm 67, so I've been interested in this topic since I was about 10. And I went through some periods where I wasn't interested, because I thought, and partly because I was turned off by all the circus around the topic, and the clown show, and but then I had some more sightings. And I just couldn't deny that I needed to understand this better. And I did a really poor job of documenting my most recent sighting. And that's when, and a little while after that, I was contacted by Antonio, and he told me, he said, how would you like to investigate UFOs? And of course, at that time, I had this very naive notion that meant, boy, there's going to be all these great sighting cases to investigate. And there was a lot of really bad sighting cases to investigate. Yeah. Occasionally you get something that's at least fanciful or interesting. But every once in a while, a really good one. Every 2 or 3 years, probably. But I did it. I got into it, and I'm still doing it. And by the way, report@ufo.org. We identify about 70% of what we get. Most of the rest are in what they call the low information zone. That is not enough information to really figure out what it is, but it also isn't all that strange. So just keep that in mind. But, I think if you have a sighting, first thing you say, I want to know what that is. And if what that is turns out to be something that's already known, you should be happy about that, and if it's not, then, well, that's even better. But we can filter out, probably 80% of those cases. And I think that's pretty much what other field investigators will tell you. The experience is that it's a high percentage, somewhere to around 80-90%. They can identify, or at least rule out from being anomalous. It's not that strange. So anyway, I'm doing too much talking. I was hoping you'd get some questions.
well, I know, guys, what are you doing? You're sleeping on the job out there. I know definitely I've got some friends that are listening, but clearly they're not in chat. I want to just, talk to you about some of the cases really quickly because over, over the years, I've investigated some cases that I thought were really fascinating. And one, here she goes, she's dozing off right here. But I had, one that came up the other day with one of my clients, and maybe about 8 years ago, there's a beautiful place in Utah. It's a concert venue. It's called Red Butte Gardens. And it's just up at the mouth of the, not only did the band, the stagehands, but hundreds of people in the audience see some things going right over the concert venue. And that was really interesting to get in and to take, witness statements. And then also we did radar requests with FAA, but there was too much ground clutter in the area. There's a hospital, the hospital's really close, and it was, we could never find anything conclusive. But even to this day, to hear stories, about that concert and people just really having their mind blown over what we don't know. The local astronomer here, there were a series of articles in the paper about it, and he chalked it up to Chinese lanterns. Even though some of the descriptions about the objects that we're seeing didn't quite match the Chinese lantern sighting. There were several objects that were over the venue, but that was just one of those stories that was so fascinating to hear everybody's take, and it was definitely from all different vantage points, so that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's good to get a lot of witnesses. That does help it does help the case quality quite a bit. We've had a lot of Chinese lantern reports, by the way, over the years. Putting one that really, well, I think I went over it in the last show. I went over how it fooled me. The video, they got you out of video, and 2 clips, and the first clip fooled me. I thought, oh my gosh, that's something really unusual and interesting. And it was only after I spent more than an hour going through that clip frame by frame, probably more like 2 hours, that I understood it well enough to say, okay, that's actually not getting any closer, because he's zooming in. It looks like it's getting closer, but it's not. We concluded it was 3 Chinese lanterns that just happened to be lined up so they look like a nice isosceles triangle. But we've had quite a few of those. Now they seem to have dried up lately. I think maybe people know what they are. It's kind of like the Starlink trains that people have seen so many of those that they understand that those are satellites. But,
and hopefully people are actually bright enough to know that we're in a fire danger. The whole country's going up in smoke. So maybe lighting Chinese lanterns isn't the way to go. I don't know. Call me crazy.
Well, they are illegal in most places. Doesn't stop people from doing it.
True. And that was, interesting when I was doing all of the research about, when I was with MUFON and some of the cases and trying to rule out the Chinese lantern thing. I mean, you're right. When I was digging around and trying to reach out to different people, I mean, they are illegal in most states, and they have been for quite some time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, first of all, let's see if there's any more questions. I guess not. Well, statements, yes, comments, all good.
Good.
If you have a question, shoot it in the chat right now, because we're running out of time. Anyway, so where's Expanding Frontiers going from here? What's your plan? Or is it?
Oh boy, we have lots of plans. We, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're celebrating our 3-year anniversary on Sunday. And so to actually get from the government right now with all the offices closing down and things, we're kind of in a mad panic to try to make sure that we're getting as many requests done as we can, or we're following up with requests that have been made over the years to try to get resolution. And so we are seeing some of these come in. In fact, Jack sent 3 emails today about different FOIA requests that we are getting information about. We just did a records request about the storm area 51 and a couple of the people involved in Dreamland and things, and we've got links on that we're going to be putting forward. But very fascinating information. So we're plugging away, and we're going to keep doing what we do, and hopefully grow the audience, and also, really, it's important that people know that even though we are, there is an environmental issue or things that we're talking about, you can always, I'm always trying to bring it back to, if you look at, like I mentioned, Dugway, we've got a lot of stuff about Dugway that we've done records requests on, and Dugway is allegedly Area 52. So maybe, look, I encourage the public to look at some of this and then say, maybe there's a reason why they're creating myths around specific sites. So we're gonna, I love it. I've never had such a positive experience in this topic. As you know, as we've both talked about, it's been really heavy at times. And so to have a research partner that does such quality work like Jack has been really an incredible experience for me. So we're going to keep at it, and then I'm going to start doing UFO Classified again as
awesome.
well. Yeah, so thanks for your encouragement about that. I've met so many wonderful people like yourself over the years doing that, and so I'm getting back to that, and look out, world. I know some people think I've been taking a break, but I haven't. Expanding Frontiers is top on that, but I've also been really monitoring the community and making sure I know what's taking place, even though I might have been a little more silent on social media. But I know what's going on. I got your number.
Okay, and is the website people should go to. And you've done quite a few interviews on YouTube since you started Expanding Frontiers. Well, I sure UFO Classified, I believe that's still, most of those old shows are still up.
They are still up. Yep, they are. And like, I've got these people on record, so we can go back and look at what they say, and that's what they say, and that's really important to me. Get people on the record like you're doing. I think that's critical.
Well, great. Listeners, audience members, no new questions. All right. Well, it sounds like Erica's a busy lady and has good plans for the future. And I sure hope to see UFO Classified back. Again, if it's on Friday, I probably won't watch it live, but well, it depends on the time. Yeah. So thank you so much for coming on. It is, I've had you for over an hour, and you've been gracious with your time, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's been a lot of fun. Thank you for being
here. And I think I'm not going to do this little discussion about aliens tonight. I'll save that for some future time, since we've been over an hour, which is fine. And I will. I still work full time too, so it's time to wrap it up. Thank you for those who were in the chat. Though we didn't see a whole lot of questions, we didn't see any questions per se. But that's what I'd like to get to with these conversations, is having at least half the conversation being audience driven, and we'll try to get to that. Still building the audience, and thank you. I'm sure a lot of your former current audience will watch this offline. Maybe Thursday night's not the best night for them.
They will, and I'll keep sharing it. And thank you for the opportunity. I really respect you and your work. And if anybody has a sighting, you are the only person, you're the only organization that I would recommend
Well,
giving
thank you very much.
this information to. I really mean that. Both Jack and I respect what you do, and I love the fact that you teach. You're teaching people, and you're not doing it in a way that, oh my gosh, if you're seeing something that can be explained, that's not a bad thing. That's empowering, and I really appreciate that about you. And we need more of that. So thank you for what you do.
Well, great. Well, thanks, Erica, and I'm sure we'll be catching up with each other before too many more moons. And take care.
Thank you. You too. Have a wonderful night. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Take care.
Bye-bye. Okay. Switching back to solo. Now, I'm not going to take much more time. Just say, report at ufo.org if you want to report to API your sighting. We will take an honest, objective look at it. We will not tell anybody who you are, and we will, when we issue our report, your name and email and all that, any other identifying information will be expunged, redacted. So, by all means, have a go at that. If you have a recent sighting that you want to share with us, older sightings are not really our cup of tea. You can't do a whole, have the person. Next one is the 28th of August. That's the plan. Same time, 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday, 9:30 Eastern. And hope to see you then. And your comments, suggestions for improvement, all that's welcome in the comments below. There. See, right there is where over there. Yeah. Let us have your comments. And even if it's just this other thing, or have this guest on, don't have my guest. And if you would like to participate in this, not just to after the conversation and discuss and ask questions and talk about whatever was on their minds. Kind of unscripted, free-flowing thing. So if you're interested in doing that with 2 or 3 other strangers, in addition to myself, then go for it. And I actually will even happily step aside and let someone else host from time to time. So just let me know. You can communicate with me. You can send a Gmail, our Gmail address at apicasefiles@gmail.com. You can use our contact us form on our website. You can, if you want to send something more confidential, report a UFO at protonmail.com. And hope to hear from all of you quite soon. And I think that will be